There was a stretch of forest on the edges of Ottawa's western suburbs that my children and I drive past every day. For years it was just there, the background of our moments of morning connection. It quietly watched us as we drove by. Its beautiful summer and fall canopies were thick and green, casting shadows all across the road. Occasionally a few leaves would hitch a ride at the edges of our car. It was a space that went both noticed and unnoticed, but it had become one of those places that felt permanent. Not because you ever stopped to think about it, but because it was woven into the small routines of our lives. A presence that slowly becomes part of how you understand where you live. Landscapes shape us like that, slowly and through repetition, through the simple fact that we move through them every day. Photography can capture a glimpse into that relationship, but only a glimpse. A photograph is flat. It's still. It holds a single moment on the surface of things, but that's all it is. I'd never intentionally captured an aerial photo prior to the beginning of this project last summer. I quickly realized that it was difficult to document such a lived space without objectifying it. Sontag suggests that photographs are inaccurate in relation to the real world, for they treat reality as if it were an object, defined by what lies within the frame. However, as Dewey notes, being in a place is a much deeper and more experiential opportunity. To objectify a natural environment is to impose unacceptable limitations on its aesthetic appreciation. It's a complex and dynamic confluence, both obtrusive and unobtrusive. Beyond the visual, it's an immersion, an interplay which crosses the senses. It's the sound of the birds in the trees, the wind in the canopy, the smell of leaves after the rain. It's the way a place settles into your memory over the years without you ever realizing it. Those experiences are impossible to photograph completely, but they are worth trying to remember. The Fallen Leaves project began with that simple impulse. It began with identifying the coming loss and trying to document this forest before it changed. Plans had been announced to clear sections of the land for the housing development, and at first I simply wanted to record what existed there, to preserve memory as best I could and bring it into ongoing dialogues, both at our dinner table and in our community. I began photographing the area from the air using a drone, looking at the forest from perspectives I had never seen before. But from above the landscape looked so different. Patterns began to appear, and what felt like a single continuous woodland from the ground revealed itself as something much more fragile and unique, an ecosystem that's under pressure. As the project grew, I began looking into the history of the sugar maple, the very tree whose leaf has become the most recognizable symbol of Canadian identity. That search led me to an image captured in Ottawa in 1892 by photographer James Ballantyne, what is believed to be the oldest archived photograph of a sugar maple in the city. Unfortunately, that tree no longer exists. As it turns out, in the mid-1950s, Ottawa cleared the space beside that tree, replacing it with a 7-lane transnational highway. In a strange way, the image of that tree became the anchor for everything I was seeing unfold here. It was a reminder that landscapes are never as permanent as we imagine them to be. This was a tree that bore the leaves that would eventually become the symbol of Canadian national identity. Its likeness waves on our flags. I wore its 5 lobes proudly on my uniform across my years of service in the military. It's symbolic. The footage you're watching now moves through the final seasonal cycle of this forest section, from the fullness of summer into autumn, through the quiet of winter, and finally into the early stages of clearing. The birds you hear in the background were actually recorded here the previous fall, before the machinery had arrived. They belong to a forest that no longer exists. That contrast between sound and image, memory and disappearance, felt, to me at least, important to keep. Because although this project focuses on a small section of forest near our home, the story it tells is much larger than this one place. Across Canada and across the world, cities are expanding outward at an incredible pace. Landscapes that quietly shape generations of people are disappearing in the span of a few months, just like ours did. Places like this forest don't just exist as scenery. They give communities a sense of place, and they remind us that we are part of something older and larger than the cities we build. As both a photographer and a teacher, sharing this work comes with certain boundaries. My role in education means I cannot engage publicly in the same way that many artists are afforded. But it also gives this work another life. These images now live in classrooms, in conversations with students, and in communities that will inherit the landscapes we're shaping today. In the end, the Fallen Leaves project is not simply about documenting a forest that disappeared. It's about remembering that the places that we move through every day may be shaping us more deeply than we realize. I find myself wondering what we lose when those changes happen without pause or reflection. What price are we paying? Thank you for taking a moment to witness and reflect, and for exploring this lost corner of our shared world.